Welcome to the So Much Cosplay show here on The Experience. I am your host, sewing teacher, prop maker, general nerd, Cheryl Sloboda Whited. That is me. And if I look a little frustrated, it's because I just recorded this video for a whole hour and it didn't record any of the audio. So what you're going to see here today is that I am going to be working on Starro. We are painting him today. We did a lot of work on this piece already, but we have more to show you, more to do. And this is our final video on Starro. But before we get started with Starro, let me just tell you that it is Dragon Con weekend, and sadly we are not there. We wanted so much to be there, but we could not. And we are having a sale on our website. Everything that you could have bought in our Dragon Con booth, you can buy on our website. And this weekend, only use the coupon code DRAGON21 for 20% off your entire purchase. We looked at all of the logistics, the costs, the pandemic, and it was just not in the cards for us to be at Dragon Con, but we will be at many shows in the future, including Dragon Con 2022, if fingers crossed and all the pandemic things aside. My friends, it's been a very tough weekend for us. We have a lot of FOMO happening because we wanted to be there at Dragon Con, but we could not. So use Dragon21 at our website this weekend through Labor Day, and you will get 20% off of your order. So we're going to talk about our Starro here, and again, you're going to see some parts painted because, of course, I had just finished, wrapped up even the entire project, and so we're going to redo some of that. I have actually remolded and heated parts of Starro here so that he does come around the face of, and here's our little sample. You can see that he's like now sort of wrapping around the face, which is what we wanted. And we even have, you know, part of the eye completed. So I'm very excited about that. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to talk about how we did the eye, and I'm also going to talk about all of this painting. So just ignore what you see here because we'll be talking about it again. So first of all, you can see a lot of the texture that we created with the molding paste as we did in the last episode. We did go back, fill in all of these areas with molding paste. So we have all of the lumpy bumps, those pustules that we're trying to go for. For those of you that want to see what we're painting towards, this is a screenshot that I took of the screen. And so this is what we're going for. You can see the eye, you can see the pink and the blue. That's where we're headed. And so let's get started. Now, I am, to get started here, I have the, so if you remember, this is a baseball holder, container, whatever you want to call it. And this baseball holder has two halves to it. And so I'm just attaching the other half so that it can stand up. And then I'm actually also using the molding paste container to help put this guy up. So let's show that video, and there we go. So he's like standing up on this, and that raises him up so that we can do our project. So once again, I've already done all this, but I will, I'm happy to do it again for you. We have paint, and these are the paints that we went to the craft store and purchased. These are just regular craft store paints. We have the dark blue, a lighter blue, and two pinky, a real high pink and a purpley pink. And so we're going to start with the dark blue, and we're going to do the arm here on this side. And so we're going to take a little bit of our paint and we're going to squeeze some of that out right here, and we're going to use this brush right here. So this is just your standard paintbrush. I got this again at the craft store. And what we're going to do is load this up with some of that. And actually, I've got paint water here, which I should have cleared out. I should have cleaned this before we started, but that is the nature of our project today. It is just going to have to go the way it goes. And so this character, whatever you want to call him, has a lot of blue around the eyeball, which is fine. And so that's going to come in. We're going to make sure we get into all these little crevices here. If he's looking at you, it's because he is. We did already do the eye, but I will go over because there's still more of the eye to do. And we're going to make sure that we get this, like any of these edges. We want to make sure that we get our brush right in there to paint that edge. We don't want any of our white paint to peek through. And so we're just getting into those little spots. And then, and we want to do that blue first because our pink will help cover some of that up. And then we're going to do the this band of blue that goes down the arm. So we're just making sure that we get good coverage with our paint. The paint's coming straight out of the bottle. We're not diluting it in any way. We're not using it. Oops. See, this is why we have him up on the little stand, so that in case he needs to be moved. All right, and we're just going to go ahead and straight down the arm. Paint all the way to the edge, to the bottom here. Don't worry if you get this blue on certain things because we're going to fill him in. We have a spot here on the side that we're going to fill in. We want to make sure all those little white crevices, anything that could be seen from the side while we're wearing this, we definitely want to make sure we cover. We have this also this little glue spot here, which I'm going to pick up that little rubbery ball. We don't want that in our final piece. And again, don't forget, we're just kind of like dabbing into the side here so that we get that paint right in there. And down in there. And again, it's really important to make sure that all of those little spots are covered. Now down here on the very tip of the arm, we're going to make sure that we don't go too crazy because the edge is actually pink. The very tip of the creature is pink. I said this in the last video, and of course it got eaten with no audio, which was I was so sad. But we are trying to make sure that we paint this as, I guess, as accurately as we can, but we also are not trying to create like this giant blue stripe here, okay? Because it looks very squarish, and this is an organic creature. And we don't want him to look like we're just painting, you know, a big blue strip and then leaving, you know, all this pink on the sides here to sort of fill in the rest. It's not really like that. So we're just taking our care here to make sure that we're getting all those little cracks and crevices filled in. And then we're also trying to eliminate as many brush strokes as we can. We don't want the brush strokes to be part of the texture of Starro here. Okay, so this is where we're at with Starro. And you want to make sure you clean your brush before you move on to any other color. You can see I have lots of colors out on my table here on my little palette, my paper plate palette, because I love paper plate palettes because they just go into the trash afterwards. So I don't have to do anything. I do have a paper towel here that's to help dry and get all the paint off the brush so that we're not mixing it with the other colors as we go. All right, so next we're going to use this purple, this darker purple. And you're probably looking at this going, well, in the picture you just showed me, Cheryl, he's very pink. It's very pink. And so we need to have a lot of coverage here because we have a lot of these like bumps, these pustules that we worked so hard to make that we want to make sure that we fill them in. And so we're coming back here with paint and we're going to fill in right next to this blue. We want to make sure we don't get any blue streaks. So make sure you kind of take care of that. And you're going to want to make sure you go around the little pustules very from all directions, because you do not want to have like white spots from your foam peeking through around the pustules. And the nice thing about these paints is they're a little bit thick, so they do a good job of helping the pustules not look like little blobs of molding paste. They will actually start to look more like the little pustules they're supposed to be. So, and we're definitely coming in next to that blue. We want to kind of not cover the blue, but we're going to come in next to the blue and make sure you get that edge. We don't want any little white spots from that rough edge that we had used our sanding on. So we're going to come really close to covering all that up. And you're just going to double check to make sure you don't have any. And so again, if it looks darker than the other section there, don't worry, that is on purpose. And we're going to also come in and fill in the centers. All of this here is going to get filled in. This is all part of our flesh of the Starro. And he is also going to be painted at the very end with a medium called gloss medium. And that will be the final layer on our Starro. After we've filled in all this other stuff, the last layer is going to be a gloss finish, and that's going to make him look very starfish-ish, colored. And don't worry about that little extra there that we got on the blue. Oops. we will be able to fix that. And again, we're trying to make sure we get around all of our pustules. The pustules are going to be this darker purple color for a reason. We want that as a shading effect. And we want to make sure that there's coverage on all sides. Okay, so we have the body finished, our flesh. And again, we're going to make sure too that we brush out any of the brush strokes, because we don't want those to appear in our highlights. All right, so we're just going to give this a minute here to dry while we talk about our next step. And that is, we're going to paint the blue stripe with a lighter blue. And that lighter blue is going to give us some dimension and also help recreate some of the uniformness, the wave down the arm of our Starro guy. And that wave down the arm is going to be right here, straight down the middle. And we're going to use the lighter blue for that. And then at the very end, we'll be able to come back and include more blue and a little bit of white. And that's going to help make that little arm waveform really stand out. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight down the middle of the raised edge. And that is that ridge line that he is, we're going to paint out from. And that's just to give me a sense of where we're going to put these. Now, this is also pretty wavy to begin with, right? So we're going to follow some of the waves that we cut in, like that. But then we're going to also put in other waves that aren't here. And the darker color is going to help us do that. Right? It's going to be like a faux effect. And these like ridges, okay, they are symmetrical in the movie. So we want them to look somewhat symmetrical here. And they're all connecting to the middle ridge that we painted. Okay. And you can use more paints to make lighter colors. And you can also add white at the very end and just, you know, highlight a little bit. That will help the effects stand out. And you want to sort of angle these so that they are like sort of organic. Again, this is an organic creature. We're not trying to like create anything from real life because, well, Starro is not real. So we're going to try to make this as symmetrical looking as possible. Now, each arm is different. So, you know, you don't have to make them each one perfect. So you don't have to match this arm to the one on the other side. That's a convenient thing. I like it when things work out like that. And we're almost to the end here of this part. So again, you're just trying to make it look organic. I think that is pretty darn cool. I do like, you know, how this is coming together. And here is the one that we did earlier. So you can see how kind of raised up, but also lumpy bumpy he looks. Now I'm going to take just a tiny, tiny bit of white and mix that into some of this blue. And we'll be able to come in and put just a little bit of that white line here down the middle. That's going to help our illusion. You can see that definitely helps. And I think that's a really cool, it's a cool effect. Even in places where we did not do that, you know, the bumps, we did do the bumps a little bit, but this really helps secure that effect for us. So, all right. So now that the flesh color, that purple, is dryish, we're going to come back in and do some more coloration here to make this stripe here less stripy. I know that seems like a really odd way to say it. So we're going to mix together some of the purple and some of the dark blue, and we're just going to mix it until we get more of the flesh, more of the purple color than the blue. And we're going to start more with like a darker purple. And what we're going to try to do is get a lot of that paint off of the brush because we don't want it to be too gloppy and too wet. And so we're just going to come in next to this area and we're going to try to tap out some of the really straight lines. We don't want it to look as like straight next to each other. Like we just painted a big old stripe. We want it to look more organic than that. So we're just tap, 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 tap a little bit into underneath where some of these lumps are. We don't want to undo any of our other stuff, but we're just trying to feather this so that it does not look so much like a big old painted straight stripe. And we can always come back in with more purple, and we are going to do that. We're going to add more purple to that blue that's already on our brush. And we're trying to get it closer now to that original purple color. And again, just come back in a little bit, little taps. You get it onto any other part, just come back in with your finger and take it out. And here as well. There we go. And we're just trying to, again, we're trying to get this to feather and not be so aggressively like a giant straight line. You know, we want it to blend. What is it from? One of my favorites is from Edward Scissorhands, and he the mother, she just says, and blend and blend and blend, and that's what we're doing. We're blending and blending and blending. Okay. So again, that doesn't look as straight stripy. It's looking a lot less like we took a straight strip of it. That's what we're trying to do. Okay. So we're trying to get this to look a little bit. And we're going to try to find some of this paint that doesn't have any mix in it so that we can come back and like help it really blend out to none. Because we do want our colors sort of come together. Okay, so we're kind of at the point now where we need to start dry brushing. I see like one little white spot sticking out there. I'm going to color that up. All right. Again, you know, we're always looking for like any spots that we missed. We didn't get enough paint in there. Want to make sure we cover all those little sections up. Okay. And it's hard to tell sometimes because the glisten of the paint can be interpreted as a white spot that is doesn't have paint on it yet, and it's actually just the wet paint. So that's why it's a good idea to let it dry and then look at it in all of the, you know, in your light so that you can see how that looks. So we're going to be doing a technique now called dry brushing. And that's going to be using this pink. As you can see here, this is a matte paint. So this, again, we are using matte and Ceramcoat color paints, but we will be making this paint. We'll be going over all of this paint with a gloss medium. So as much as he looks very matte colored here, he will eventually look very glossy because that will be part of the so this is the brush we're using. It's kind of like a more of a rounded tip instead of these pointy tips. Okay, so it's got a little bit of a roundness to them. This is what we're going to use to dry brush. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up, just show you here, we're going to pick up just a little bit of the paint on the brush. You can see we've got just a little bit, and we're going to feather it out so that we have less paint on the brush. So we're just kind of feathering it back and forth in that spot. And then with the very lightest touch, we're going to just gently brush it over the tips of the bumps. And we're going to use that light touch very lightly to dry brush over those bumps. And that dry brush is not getting down into all of the cracks and crevices, so it's laying more on the surface, which is what we want. And because it's laying on the surface, it's going to highlight these pustule things that we worked so hard to put onto our surface. And this will highlight them in a very nice way, and it will make them look more raised. So we're just, again, using that very light hand, that very light touch to put this pink on these pustules. And don't worry about the flesh areas. We're going to come back and do those. We're just trying to highlight. You can see that we're brushing the paint onto the pustules and they're like sticking up. That's what we want. And again, we want a lot of the brush to be dry of paint. We don't want a lot of paint to be filling in. We don't want to fill in like we did the previous step. We want more of a raised surface. And again, that a lot of that comes down to just using the palette or your paper plate or whatever you're using here, is to get a lot of that off before you come and brush. So you can see we've got lots of raised surfaces here. And now we're going to come in and do more in the center, and we're going to build this area up. All this flesh we're going to fill in. And we don't want to overdo it in the areas where we have the pustules, right? We just want more here to fill in and make him actually pink, because he is pink. It is pink. Starro is a very pink creature. It is more pink than not, with these blue, very blue stripes down the arms. So that's what we're filling in with this dry brush technique. Okay. And we're just gonna make sure that our, oops, now here is where the paint was not dry. So we're gonna have to dabble that back. Now we've got it on this brush. So we're gonna clean this brush off, let this all dry, and then come back in and fix that area later. The other thing is that you want this brush to be very dry when you use this technique. So use your paper towel and everything to get your brush very dry as much as you can before you, and I air dry it, I guess, by doing that on my hand. So on this area here, which we did earlier, and I'm going to just use a little bit of white and mix that with the pink. And we're going to do the same dry brush effect, but we're going to have it even pinkier. And we're just going to come back in over these raised pustules one final time with that white mixed in. It's a very light color. And again, when this is hit with the gloss medium, these are really going to stand out as wet looking and like more like the pustules that they should be. I know it sounds so gross, right? And I looked at this, figure for a lot of the time, and whew. But yeah, he looks great. He looks very gross. Just what we were hoping for. All right, and so that's the layers there of the paint. And we do have some more that we can do to this eyeball. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the eye. And Starro's eye is digitally created in the movie. Okay, so we don't have the ability to do that here. It would be nice. But what we have to do is layer this much like an animation cell from cartoons or whatever. And so what we're going to do is we're going to remove the baseball holder on the back. That's going to allow us access to the interior here. Okay. And this interior, I have already started using the paints on it. But we're going to talk about what kind of paints, because we can still see through this. Now, you can't see really great. You're still going to want a handler to help you see, but this is transparent paint, so it will allow you to be able to see through it somewhat. We are using what are called alcohol inks. Now, these are done by a company called Ranger. They made this alcohol ink for like the scrapbooking and other kinds of stuff. This is, again, it comes in lots of different colors. So we have lots of different colors here, but it's clear. And we will be able to see our work here. And what I'm using is one of these. This is just a brush used for alcohol inks. And this, we're just putting a little bit of the lightest shade first onto the brush. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to brush it on, and it's going to layer so that we get more eyeball dimension and darker colors to our eyeball. Now, again, you're gonna need somebody to navigate you, but it is starting to look quite dark. And don't forget to come onto the edge here and dapple so that you get more of a real eyeball look. Okay. And we want that to be really dark around the edges. Now you can also see that I have put some white paint in here, and you have to do those layers first. You also have to do the dark colors first, because your eyeball is built up like an animation cell. And as this is like an animation cell, you don't want your darker colors to be put down first. You want your light colors and whatever is presenting first. And so presenting first is, of course, this black. And we wanted that black. I did that with a Sharpie, but we will come back in and do over it with more of like a dark colored ink. And that will be some of the last layers that we add in here are the darkest layers because we want all our light layers to do the light work. So like on the back here, we're just adding, and I'll put this underneath so you can see. We're just adding in the last bits. And again, it's supposed to look like an eye, right? So we want the colors to look mixed. You look at your own eye, it's not a straight color. It's starting to look very eyeballish. Now, if you get a color and you don't like it, this stuff is removable with isopropyl alcohol. So you would just get out your alcohol and wipe all of this away. Also, if you did any stripes or anything, any colors with any Sharpie markers or anything, you can make that go away with alcohol. And that's how you can get it off your hands as well. case you get it on your hands. So again, very much like a animation cell. We're building this up from the back. We're putting more and more like dappling in there. That's to create more of that effect, that eyeball effect. He is definitely looking at me. So, and then if you're curious as to the color, as to what color is on your paint, your alcohol ink stick, you would just rub that on your palette. You'll be able to see what color you've got going. And so, you know, again, this stuff is not really, I guess, soluble with water. It doesn't like remove with water. It only removes with alcohol. And so if you do get to a point where it's like not how you want it, you can use alcohol to start spreading it around. Now, I'm just using a little bit of water in here to make it a little bit lighter. And as this dries, it also helps like smooth out some of the brush strokes. And we're so getting there. He looks amazing. Now make sure he's not like dragging in your paint, your other paint over there. So again, if you want this eye section here, you don't want to really, so you can still sort of see through it. Again, you're going to still want a handler or something. So I do think that the eye is looking really, really amazing. Definitely going to be part of totally the look we're going for. And so let's go back to this section here, which needs that little repair. And we're just going to pull out our brush. We're going to go back with the dark purple. Now that this is dry, that'll help cover that. And going down onto this section here, we can start to help blend it too, because it was looking a little too blue in those sections. All right. All right, and now we can go back to our hot pink. And we can get that hot pink back to feathering it out. We want the pink pink, not the white pink. We want that pink pink, and then we can come back and start fixing that area. It'll also help highlight the area that we were trying to get, fixing these little pustules here. Don't worry though, you're going to come back with some white, and that's going to really make that area pop. There we go. Here, our little problem area is all fixed. It looks a little bit too, you can always tap some lighter paint on it. And if you are running out of paint on your palette, or you're like, oh no, it's too dry, just put some more paint out. There's no reason that you can't not put more paint down. Get some of this to highlight up. I see a little section over here that just needs just a little more. Here we go. Awesome. All right. And yeah, I think he is looking fantastic. You know, it's always a good thing when it comes out and it looks like you hoped it did. You know, like when you're like, oh, he finally looks like he's supposed to. That always makes me feel like I did it. All right, so now I'm mixing up some of that super pink with the white, and we're just going to do a little bit of brushing over these guys. Now, again, this is where you want your brush to be dry. We only want to barely go over the surface of these pustules. We don't want these to be, we want it to make them look, you know, with like a highlight. We don't want to make them white. So we've got them really highlighted up. Nice. And we're just going to put a little bit in here. I'm going to brush just a tiny bit in here. Tiny bit in here. Just to give ourselves a little bit of highlight. Again, this is all going to get some additional paint, gloss. It's going to be super glossy when he is done. Let's get some of that paint off of there. Now, these dry brush techniques, because they dry the brush out, you're going to want to look inside your bristles to make sure that you got all of the dried paint off of the bristle, because it can really stick on there. And then when you re-wet it with more paint, it sort of like activates as a solvent off of that paint, and it gets it to it basically just takes those little paint parts and redeposits them. We don't want that. So, all right, so we're going to just continue painting the blue on this guy. We're going to do this dark blue around the eyeball. Now that we've got our eye mostly painted, we're going to just make sure we come back in to any of these visible bits, and we're going to paint around that edge so that it's all underneath there. And start down the next arm. You know, like we're kind of just continuing around and around. Continuing our eyeball process. And it's not hard now. He's really like coming together. He's definitely looking more like the movie. And we can still see out of this eyeball. Not great. It's not pure clear vision there. So, but it is one of those cosplays where if you are walking around with somebody, you can lift up the Starro on your face. And then if you get someone who wants to take a picture or something, you can always put it back down. So that's helpful. Yeah. So we're just going around, painting up the blue center eye. We're going to use a lot of care on this section over here because we've already painted this whole body section. We don't want to mess with that. So we're just going to use some extra care here because you want that side there to be filled in. But we don't want that paint on our on our nicely finished flesh. So I'm just going to put out a little bit more dark blue. And this is the point at which I would go ahead and start the next arm. So I'm going to do that with this side here. Just kind of gives the opposite side where I was a chance to dry. And again, you are coming down into all of these crevices here. You want all of that to get painted. Straight down our rather creepy looking arm. Now, to finish off our Starro, he will get some elastic stuck to him. And the elastic is going to be in the on the very tips here. Okay, so if we back way out so you can see. All right, our elastic is going to be from here. From here to here and here. So it's going to create like a triangle, and that's going to help pull these sections in towards the face. And then there's going to be one on the bottom from here to here. That's going to go around the bottom of the head. So you will be able to get like a full wrap of Starro around your face. And that's what we're going for. That elastic I'm just going to stick on with contact cement, because the plastic in the elastic will stick to the EVA foam really well. And once they're stuck, they will not come off, those elastic bits. So if you ever wondered how to do that, you just glue it. Glue a strip. Make sure you measure the elastic to the width of your head and things like that. Remember, this looks like a stripe at first, but we feather all that out like we just did. And again, we're just making sure we're not having any brush strokes. We don't want those brush strokes to come out on our project. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you're now seeing how this is all turning out. You have your eyeball here. You have your piece on the arm. The arm is painted, so I'm just gonna, while I have the blue on my brush, I'm gonna go ahead and do the next one. I just find this part to be the most satisfying because it actually then becomes the thing that you've been trying to make it, right? Like, we've been looking at Starro here for several weeks. And truly, once you put all these videos together, he's just a couple hour build. We built him in a day, or like in a couple hours, and then we had to use molding paste, and that took a couple hours, and that took overnight to dry. So, you know, but by the time you finish this, he's not all bad as far as like being able to put him together start to finish. So I wouldn't, you know, for those of you that are like, wow, you've been working on this for weeks, Cheryl, it's because, you know, I only do it on the show. The only thing I didn't do on the show was more of the molding paste. But you did see how that was done. You just didn't see every single detail. And again, don't forget, you want to look for all those little white spots we're trying to cover those up. Trying to get under where somebody might see the underside. Don't think that people won't see the underside. I always assume they can see everything. There we go. And awesome. That brushing out all those brush strokes, making that stripe. But again, don't worry, our flesh color will cover that up. I do like it when a good plan comes together, and this is definitely one. He has definitely been, a challenge, right? Because you're looking at something from a movie or a prop, and you're like, how do I even begin to make that? And so I think we've covered like a lot of really, really good steps to make this really come together. I'm very happy with Mr. Starro here. Perhaps he's happy with me. It's hard to tell. Starro is a very mysterious creature. He doesn't talk much. I hope at this point you've seen the movie so that you get what exactly we've been trying to go for. But, he has been rather fun to build. And I think in the grand scheme of things, he'll be a lot of fun to wear at a convention. And I'll be bringing him around to some of our shows that we're going to be doing. So you'll see him at plenty of places. My friends, we have run our course. I hope you have learned an awful lot about making Starro. Can't wait to see what you make. And my friends, stick around here on The Experience. You'll be able to see all sorts of other cool shows. Thank you for spending this part of your evening with me. Take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend and talk to you soon. Bye.